you. How many of you here have ever heard my podcast or, oh, fresh meat? So my podcast is a lot about, on the surface, it's about money. And now, disclaimer, I am not a money expert. I don't claim to be. I am just a person who's been really poor, done okay, and made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot in between. And my desire is to share some of that with you so you don't have to have the same road rash I did. You get to get your own. So what I do in here is I drag one of you guys up and we talk about your life and your money. And I hand you this, which I'll set right here right now. And we sort it out. And the way I look at money is like a table. It's got 4 legs. It's got knowledge, and then a plan, and then habits, and then there's your being. And you're like, what is that? It's just sort of the soup, the human soup that you are based on where you came from, how you were raised, the stuff you've been through, right? The problem is in the very first leg, we're not given the knowledge it takes to actually succeed with money in our culture, right? I mean, how many of you guys feel like you were well equipped to make your way in the world and do at least as well as your parents did? Raise your hand. Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, we got a so-so. We got some hope. Yeah, exactly. And there's a reason for that, in my opinion, and these are all just my opinions. They're worth what you paid for them, right? The modern educational system, as I understand it, was created largely in the Victorian era when little bitty Great Britain ran a global empire from somewhere in the Atlantic. They ran almost the entire planet. Like, they ran a lot. Of course, it's not the entire planet, but they ran a lot of stuff going on, right? How do you do that without computers? How do you run the world from a little place in the Atlantic? You standardize reading, writing, and math, and you teach people how to do those things so they can execute your orders. You don't teach them how the system works, because that would backfire on you, right? So of course you're not taught how the system works. So for me, we live in the matrix, right? You guys are all mostly, 20s, 30s, some of you in your 40s. I don't know if anybody's as old as I am, but if you are, I love you. So you guys are what I refer to as a branded generation. When I was a kid, we just had cereal. We didn't have Disney cereal. We didn't have Marvel food. You guys are born into a generation where your identity and your sense of belonging comes from consuming things that have certain labels on them. And belonging is one of the most basic human needs there are, right? Is this making sense? I can barely see the nodding heads for the lights. Fair warning, when you get up here, you're gonna be blinded. So we'll be blind together. So what I do in my podcast is I pull a volunteer up here who wants to talk about money and what you want, or has a question, or has a conundrum, can't figure something out. I can talk a little more, and I will, but off the bat, is anybody just off the gate have a question or a concern or someplace where they feel stuck or they don't know how to do something and they'd love to know? Great, come on up. Ah, I got one. We're gonna move over this way for our technical crew. They prefer that we're over here. Hi, tell me your name.
My name is Megan.
Megan. Welcome,
yeah.
Megan.
Thanks.
We can lean, we can talk.
Oh,
so
yeah,
come on over
chill.
here, Megan. Let's
be
chill.
relaxed.
All right, so what's your concern? What's your question?
So I have a fairly decent paying job.
Great-ish.
I mean, I make $50K.
Great, and you live here?
And I live in Chicago.
See, this is the other thing. You can make $50K in Chicago, and it is what that is, or you can make $50K in LA, and that's a whole other ballgame.
Right.
Or $50K in South Bend. That's a whole other ballgame.
Yeah.
So you're sort of in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I'm not ever really super worried about stuff necessarily.
Yeah.
But then I'll be like, yeah, so I can go to cons and things. But I also have a plethora of medical issues with me. So suddenly 50,000 on paper is not that much money.
Well, there's 3 things I want to address already. Number 1, we don't talk numbers in our culture, do we? No. It is so rare, and I have such respect for you to get up here and name a number, because it's like this big secret. It's like, oh, I'm not going to tell you what I really weigh. I'm not going to tell you what I really make. And the more we discuss it, the more empowered we are. I mean, in the 1980s, the average CEO's salary was 30 times employee wages. Today, it is 500 times employee wages. That is unsustainable because that leads to Bastille Day. I'm sorry, as I tweet all the time, pitchforks are coming. And it may look like a bunch of people voting. I don't know, we'll see. Or it may just look like pitchforks.
Eat the rich.
I didn't start it, you did, with your 500 times employee wages salary. So good on you for talking about numbers.
Yeah. I always want to ask my boss, but he's the general counsel and president of the company.
And he doesn't want to create all that resentment. You know, people, whenever you see an opportunity or anybody out there advocating for a $15 an hour minimum wage, you're going to hear a lot of backlash that it makes everything too expensive for the small business owner. I haven't done a deep dive into those statistics, but what I can tell you is someone who I greatly respect, Nick Hanauer, he has done a super deep dive on all this stuff, and he's advocating heavily in Seattle for this, and that is the case there in Seattle for the most part. And it has beefed up the economy. Because when people are walking around, when you're walking around with more money in your pocket, don't you feel comfortable spending more? And how many pairs of pants can that one CEO buy? Right? And why does it matter that we're even talking about this? It matters because, like it or not, we are all adulting now. And we need to step up because we've been children, economically and socially. And look what it's got us. I don't know about you, but I'm not a big fan. You know, of the division and the corporate takeover, and we won't even go to individual politicians and their actions. Let's just go to the culture. I'm not a fan right now. I'm a fan of this room and this place and how people are here. You know, that's what I live for. So back to you. The other point is, so your vote does matter, and that's why, because you get to have a say. And even if you don't feel like having a say, I'm going to ask you very personally, get up off your butt and go have your say and then go home. It is not that much. People die around the planet every day for the privilege that we take so for granted. You got to knock it off because we frickin' need you. You matter whether you like it or not. I just blew my necklace off my neck. So, I mean, that's just my opinion. Now let's talk about that 50 number. I'm going to have to do math in my head, which, you know, disclaimer, full of mistakes, but we're going to just walk through it for the example of it. So when you make 50K, you're probably, I'm going to say about 27% taxes.
I believe that's right. It's between 22 and 27.
Does that include state taxes?
My name is Megan.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody know what the state tax rate is here in Illinois? I don't know it. Okay, so is it fair to say, like, we could just say 30% to include all taxes? Okay. So 30% of 50 grand, so you're actually bringing home just under $3,000 a month that you can actually use, all right? That has to cover your mortgage, not your mortgage, but if you own, it's got to cover where you live, any insurance on where you live, and if you don't have renter's insurance, that's on you. You need to get you some renter's insurance, because stuff happens. You got to have your car for a lot of people. You got to have car insurance. You got to eat. You got to get around. That money is gone like that.
Student loans.
Let's talk about debt. Let's talk about debt. How many of you guys in here have experienced the whole college debt thing? Okay, that's a lot of hands. Oh, my heart. Okay, oh, thank you, Gwen. Gwen's rock star bringing in chairs. You're the best. We actually get to sit down. So this is the thing here. Megan, move out here and we can put the chairs up against here. This is the thing about student debt is you get this degree and maybe you got 100 grand in debt or 75 grand in debt for a career you're gonna make 36,000 a year for. Did anyone lay that equation out for you ahead of time? And would you have made the same choice? Like, I'm telling you, you live in the matrix. Let's educate you so you can choose to go under or to, not. By the way, I need to let you guys know, there's some of you for whom this conversation makes you want to stick a pen in your eye or go to sleep. Now that you're in here, you know what it is. I will not be the least bit offended if you need to go outside and get some air. I'm so pleased everybody else is here. And you too, but I don't take it personally if you need to head out. All right, so here's the other thing I want you to think about in this structure. At some point, you're not gonna want to work this job anymore, right? And in the times that we live in now, with the rare exception of some municipal jobs and things where you really are in for life and you have the pension when you retire, military and et cetera, you're probably gonna have a couple of different careers in your lifetime. You know, you're gonna change a few times. I'm gonna scoot back so you can see me better. You can change a few times, you're gonna switch it up, and you need to have some fluidity to do that. Everybody needs a safe, like I look at money in certain formulas. How many of you here have a safety net in the bank? Awesome. Can I have shout outs about how long a safety net you have? A month, 6 months, 12 months? What's that? Year and a half, 6 months, 3 months. Good. I'm so proud of you all. This is awesome. So you got to take that now 36 roughly take home that you've got, and you also then have to figure in saving. How does that happen? So, all right, so we framed out, I interrupted you to sort of frame out the points that I'd heard so far. So your question, your urgent need is?
Life is hard. That's really like, it's
what do you
just,
want? This is a question that kills everybody. What do you want?
A lot of things.
Okay.
Lately, I think the thing that is driving me the most crazy is like, so I said I have that much take home and I have a bunch of medical issues. So in the first 3 months of this year, so on about March 5th, I'd paid $3,500 for medical already. And luckily, my deductible and out of pocket for my insurance is that much.
Okay.
So now I'm fine, but like every year, within 3 months,
Yeah.
I've paid $3,500 to stay alive.
Yeah.
And
that's a huge burden. It's a huge burden, and it sucks. And you should not be penalized for your physiology that you probably didn't have a choice about. I mean, obviously, you're doing all the things to take care of yourself, right? Eating properly. Now, this takes me down another rabbit hole alert, because we live in the Matrix. Have you guys seen how many of you seen the food pyramid put out by the government?
Which one?
Right. Sorry, was that out loud? So sorry. It's a biplane now? Oh, it's a plate. Yeah. Is there wheat on that plate? There's wheat? No, not weed. I am neither advocating nor dismissing weed as a nutrient. Wheat. Let me tell you again. Wheat. Is there wheat on that plate? Let me tell you something about wheat. Do you know that it is a heavily subsidized government crop? In other words, government pours a lot of money into it. Did you know that the beef you eat is eating a lot of corn and stuff? Because those are government subsidized crops, right? And this is the critical thinking you kind of have to start to do. How many of you eat sort of the standard American diet? Oh, not as many as I would expect. Ooh. How many of you eat organic? There's a few people who eat organic. This is awesome. Does anybody know the reason why organic is important?
They're ethically fed too.
Ethically is good. It screws over Monsanto. Well, Monsanto's out just, we don't even start about Monsanto. I'm about to go, welcome to the Monsanto rabbit hole. Hang tight, Megan. Part of what's going, has anybody heard of functional medicine? All right, people have heard of the functional medicine, yay! Functional medicine is where your doctor doesn't just give you a pill from Big Pharma to go take, to circle you back around to big food and big medicine. Functional medicine is where they actually drill down into why. Why does your stomach keep doing this? Why do you feel so tired? Why do your joints hurt? Well, it's because my body's doing this. Well, the body's not supposed to do that. What other system underneath that is going wrong? They just keep digging until they actually find an answer and can begin to attempt to help the body right itself again. If your weight is not where you want it, if your energy is not where you want it, I guarantee you it's coming from what's going in your mouth. And then what you are and aren't able to absorb. Fun fact, many of you may already know this, I believe current science says we are about 10 bacterial cells to every one of our human cells. You're not just a human. Nirvana! No. So we feed those bacteria with what we eat. I'm always amazed that people feel bad when they're eating badly and are mystified. I'm like, if you put sugar or sand in your car tank and it didn't run, you wouldn't be shocked. You're doing the equivalent. If your food comes from a package or your great-great-grandmother would not recognize it, you should not be eating it because it's making you sick. I saw a commercial last week. I rarely watch them, but I do from time to time just to keep myself current. It was for canola oil. I almost threw my couch through my TV because it was like, canola oil's heart healthy. No, it's not. There was a great video out a few months ago from this very distinguished looking, very knowledgeable and wonderful cardiologist describing that if you're eating things like canola oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil, any oil that is not avocado, coconut, or olive, anything that's not one of those, it's like taking a wire brush and scrubbing the inside of your vascular system, causing damage and inflammation. And wheat does its own special kind of damage, and don't even get me started on sugar. Sugar lights up more centers in your brain than cocaine and heroin. It really does. I mean, the tests are out there, Google it. Yeah, it's a drug, it's an absolute drug. And they put it in everything. Why? Because their job is to come up with formulas that keep you coming back for that company's products. That is their single, it is not to nourish you. No, their number one concern is shareholders. Shareholders became primary in, I think, the 80s. It started to be all about shareholders are the number one concern of every company. I am enraged that we define modern American economic success as shareholder value. I'm about to swear. Please cover your children's ears. That is bullshit. And it's not just BS, it's hurting us. It's hurting us. Enough is enough. So what can you do? You have medical stuff you have to deal with. Vote. It keeps coming back to that. In the little tiny town elections, in the little tiny county elections, in the little city elections, in the state elections, in the federal elections, because that is the bat that we have. And we are not wielding it. All right? I need some feedback. Thank you. Good, because I can't feel if you're with me or not, because I'm all mad now. Right? We're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. You'd have to be my age to know that reference. All right, there we go. So you're going to need to, and here's another news. We're all, world willing and whatever you believe in willing, we're all going to live to be older, right? So with this money, with this about $3,000 coming in and your medical bills that take up, a third of your income every month for the first 3 months of the year, and God help you if you need to go outside of network for somebody who's actually a functional medicine doctor, may be able to solve your problem. Now, there's a lot of podcasts, by the way, that you can dive into. Dr. Mark Hyman, Hyman, has an amazing podcast called The Doctor's Pharmacy. It's Pharmacy. His podcast, you will learn about your physiology, how it works, and the real answers and the real truth. He's out there holding a flashlight up to the truth. He's a very well-respected man. He runs the Functional Medicine Institute at the Cleveland Clinic, and he's amazing. He's a great source of information. You're gonna here's the bottom line on all this. You're gonna have to educate yourself. You're gonna have to do it for yourself in the time you don't have. Does anybody here know the number one commodity that we each possess that every corporation on the planet wants to get its hands on?
Information.
Close. Your attention. Where your eyeballs go and where your hearing goes. Your earring goes. It's your attention. Just start to pay attention to how many times a day someone else owns that and not you. How many times a day you're sucked into Facebook, you're sucked into Twitter, and you're sucked in there because those things are set up to give you little hits of dopamine. And dopamine's the happy chemical in your brain. Set up to give you little hits of dopamine every time you're like, oh, like attention, belonging, yay. No! We are the loneliest we've ever been. We are the saddest we've ever been. We have the disease, the horrible, parasitic, god-awful disease, it kills me, of comparing ourselves to other people more than we ever have. And that is a sin. that has been foisted on us, and now we've taken it in. It's the alien. It's the nasty alien that now lives inside. You are you, and there really is only one of you, and we need you. We need you. You. We need you, just like you are. Take your attention back and use that time to listen to a functional medicine podcast or read up on your retirement, because one day you're going to take your life in your hand and you may not stop working. I don't know that that's in the cards for any of us, but you may transition to a career that feels a little different. You know, look around at how much you doing things because you should or ought to. You know, do you need to be in a large city? Maybe your definition of success is actually living in a beautiful tiny home somewhere in the wilderness and helping animals, or running a little theater program in a small town where you see little kids light up every day, or you see teenagers come out of their shell just a tiny bit every day. That is incredibly valuable. We're in a society now that values all this flash and BS. And we're dying from this horrible internal sort of cancer as a result. And the solution is inside of you. Have it. It's right there inside you. It is the voice of you. And if you can't hear it, join the club. We've all been deafened to what we really want. Just start to listen. And then notice how you may feel like really embarrassed about what you actually like. You know, like, I don't want to tell anybody. You don't have to right away, but you at least need to have the respect to hear yourself for a minute, you know? So, okay, on your budget, you also have to save for that retirement, whatever that's going to be, whether it's going to be in 2 years or 50 years, who knows? How many of you here were ever taught how to invest? Wow, that's like 5 people in this whole room. Maybe there's 6, a couple I can't see out there. Yeah, you're supposed to invest. You want to talk about when that happened? That happened in the 1980s when legislation was passed that's above my pay grade to know the details, but basically retirement plans used to be that companies would put away enough money when you worked for them, they'd put it in your retirement fund, and they had somebody on staff who was trained in investing, and their job was to grow this mountain of money while you did your work every day, because that company was on the hook. When you retired, they had to give you something called a defined benefit. They were doing what they called defined benefits, which is your benefit when you retired was defined. If anybody here is in a union, you probably still have a defined benefit plan. When you retire, you're going to get $3,000 a month, or $5,000 a month, or $6,200 a month, or whatever it's going to be. There's somebody on staff whose job it is to grow that money. In the 80s, they were like, let's put this little legislation through on the back of that other one. Nobody will notice. Yeah. Now they do what's called defined contribution. Sure, we'll put that $300 a month in for you, or that $86, or that $24. It's your job to grow it. Good luck. And then they birthed this whole industry called the investment industry, where you do your, your stocks and stuff, or your fund or whatever. And you're like, I don't know how this works. I gave them my money and I seem to kind of have the same amount every year. I don't know what's going on. Guess who's making money off that? The company you invested with. They're making their percent every year. And listen, blessings to your advisor. If any of you in here are advisors, this is not a smack on your integrity at all, but your company is teaching you, invest in this. They're guiding you, get people to invest in that, get people to invest in that. Because it may be good for the people, but it's also the most profitable thing for your firm. Yeah. For me, real estate is the answer, because people are always going to need a place to live. Most of us understand houses, how to live in a house. I mean, a great plan for anyone here would be save up, buy a place that you can have roommates in if you're still able to do the roommate thing. Have roommates in it, very, very modest little house, and then continue to save, buy the next one, keep the first one, rent it out. Buy the next one, keep those 2, rent them out. That will get better care of you in the long run than any investment plan that I'm aware of. Then this is just my opinion. It's worth what you paid for it. We all know what that is. So now that being said, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to make so many mistakes on the way with real estate. But reach out for people around you who know something. Okay. All right. So for you, is the burden for you just the burden of having this medical expense every year? Is that what you're looking for breathing room from?
I mean, kind of, I guess. Like recently they came out saying that there was going to be a generic insulin that's like half the cost that's coming out. But then there's the whole conundrum of, oh, okay, is my insurance going to let me even get that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which most of the time,
Yeah.
they don't want to because they're partnered with whoever else.
You have to look at their motivation. Their motivation is profit. My belief, and this gets into a little into the political, and again, I'm not an expert, I just have my opinion, and you should form your own. My opinion is that if we move to a system similar to the Canadian or the Australian, and you know, I'm a dual citizen, I'm Canadian American, and my family in Canada has, it's not a perfect experience at medicine, but it's a pretty great experience, honestly. My father's had cancer for 20 some years, and he's been able to sort of steer his treatment the way that he wants, go back in for corrections when he wants to, and he's doing fine. My sister's had a number of issues, and they've all been, you know, they're all quite happy and healthy. So for me, I think as a developed nation, I think if the system was under something everybody was guaranteed, in other words, kind of a government program, it would have to run well, because they're going to have to be accountable to us. Now, not everything government runs well. They'd stop doing this crap. They'd stop jacking up the price of EpiPens $600, because we would burn them at the stake, because we'd have the right to as citizens in that. Again, it comes back to vote. Vote. You know, you don't have to be involved 24/7. Just look around for a small action you can do, and when you get that ballot, it's full of all these measures and stuff, you're like, oh my God. Every public radio station that I have encountered generally does some kind of a rundown. There's always something online somewhere which sort of summarizes, like, this is what each of these little things means, or just vote on the 3 you know about. You don't have to vote on all 46 of them. Just get involved in that tiny little way. So your concern is that larger concern. Yeah. And there's nothing we can do about it. But with information, do you feel any better armed at all?
I feel like I keep trying to look around for more information, and that's how I like know about, oh, there's this other insulin, because my doctor sure didn't ever bring it up to me.
Nope.
So I mean, knowledge is always power.
It is. It is. Yeah. Now, what about, have you investigated your the medical condition you have, and there's not a lot you can do, but there's minor sort of nutritional just add-ons you can do. Has anybody talked to you about the ketogenic diet or any of that stuff?
Yeah, my problem is I very often get really bad low blood sugar. So I'm like,
yeah, that's above my pay grade.
Now I need it.
Yeah. I would look into Dr. Mark Hyman, the Broken Brain, Doctor's Pharmacy. Look into functional medicine approaches to managing diabetes, and that could give you some little bits of breathing room. Yeah. Good luck to you. Thank you for getting up here,
Thank you.
Megan. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll take your microphone.
Next victim.
Yes, come on up. Welcome. Hi. Tell us your name.
I'm Jacqueline.
Jacqueline. Yeah. Hey, I didn't meet you yesterday?
Friday.
Yeah. It's been a long weekend. Yeah. All right. Talk to me.
So, like the lady before me, I make a decent amount of money, like 50 to 60K, depending. I'm a nurse, so.
Thank you.
But the thing is, so I'm in a very specialized form of nursing. I work in neonatal ICU. So it was really funny you were talking about how people, because of the college debt, because of we're not as well set off as our parents, there's a big declining birth rate. And it's affecting our hospital because people are having less babies.
Pause. I didn't even realize this because this generation is not as well off. The birth rate is falling.
We have an aging, I've looked into it a lot.
Wow.
Aging population. We're going to be like Japan, they say, in like probably the next 4 years.
And that's a huge burden.
So because of that, and thank goodness to technology, we're better at keeping in preemies and mom, which is great, but there are some times we have to deliver. However, we've been burdened with, we get something called low census. If we don't have enough patients, they'll cancel the nurses. And the only way to get paid is if you take up your vacation time, so less cons for me.
Oh, we can't have that.
Or you don't get paid at all. So recently we've been really slow. Slowest that we've ever been in our hospital's history.
What's making you guys slow? People just can't, people are
and here's,
well? Or
well, here's the thing. Our hospital 2 years ago cut a bunch of insurances in Medicaid. So then they say, oh, we're not getting any patients. So they've brought on new clinics. However, a lot of people have left. I'll be there 5 years in August. And like my question is, I don't really know what to do. I'm getting way less paychecks. Like I have a mortgage, I live with my boyfriend, you know, that helps a lot. But I don't know, is being there 5 years now that I'm vested, is it worth it just to stay there, even though like my pay goes up and down like this?
All right.
Or do I go somewhere else? I don't know what to do.
Because you don't have a North Star. If you're navigating without a North Star, you don't know where to go. Your North Star right now is money, but that's not what drives your heart.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I could go work in another field, but my passion is neonates. Like, that's what I love and what I do.
Are you tied to Chicago?
I'm an only child, and all I have is my parents.
Yeah.
That's the other part. So I don't know, like, you know, and he has a big family too in Chicago.
So yes, you are.
I don't know.
So you are tied to Chicago, or somewhere within an hour and a half's drive. So you can maybe go have supper with the folks once a week and not. And as a parent, please keep doing that. Okay. Most of us consider our lives and our life choices from the perspective of money. I mean, I did. That's what we all do. There's another option that can be equally important. It doesn't have to displace it because that's not always practical. What about meaning? It sounds like are the values of the hospital that you work at aligned with you as a human being? From what you're describing to me, I'm hearing a corporate environment that is strictly profit-based. They've gotten rid of several.
Nonprofit. They made $1 billion last year.
Yeah.
They made $1 billion last year.
They made $1 billion last year, and they're cutting insurances out and Medicaid out. They're not service-oriented. That is the behavior to me of someone who is profit-oriented. Does that align with your personal values?
No.
Okay.
I'm very like, healthcare for everybody.
You're from the heart.
And,
you gotta. There's a whole, because I live in California. There's this whole thing about energy and like the heart versus the head, and so. Gotcha. So it's your life takes on I think additional momentum when the values of the place you work are aligned with your own values. And you gotta be practical. You can't just quit tomorrow and go, I don't like you. You have a mortgage. But you can start to look around and create opportunities in places that do line up with you. You could go out on your own and do some baby care, like when those people who have the nannies come in when they first have the babies. You could do some of that for medically challenged babies. I mean, you could get some good money freelance in that. Now, you're going to get your own insurance, as we discussed the insurance thing, and all that. You'll have to deal with self-employed issues, which in today's tax climate, you may need to be incorporated, because how many of you are self-employed? Okay, remember your schedule, how many of you did you guys file a Schedule C in previous years? Okay, I got a nod over here. Yeah. The Schedule C is where if you were self-employed, you used to be able to write out all your expenses and stuff and take them. I don't know the new tax code. I'm really scared of it. It's this nasty little monster I haven't approached yet. But I used to know the Schedule C inside and out. And I had my QuickBooks lined up so that my categories were exactly that I put my expenses in matched the Schedule C. So at the end of the year, I went, bloop, there's my report, I'm done. I think now you may have to be incorporated, but do not take my word for it. Please go consult an accountant. So if you went to work for yourself, talk to an accountant immediately so that you can set up your books ahead of time to take full advantage of all the write-offs that you have as a self-employed person. It's worth spending the money on 1 hour of a good accountant's time to be ready, to be prepared, okay? So there are other options that line up with your heart. When the environment that you create, because you do. There's a lot of places where you are unconscious. Now, after today, we've flipped a lot of switches that were off in your brain. You're now on the hook for a lot of stuff you weren't on the hook for before you walked in here. I'm so sorry not.
Only from you.
There's two crazy forces that happen when you decide what you want. That's the first thing you can declare. You have my permission and your own permission to now say, I want to work with a company. I want to work somewhere where I don't have to drive any longer than this to go see our families. I want to work somewhere where I get to do this in my free time. I want to work somewhere where the values are this, 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 and this. And I know if I'm increasing a company's bottom line, it is this kind of a company I am doing it for. And I want you to get all that really clear in your head. I want you to put out that wish list. It's this crazy. When I ask people what they want, they often blank out. Because when did we ever take that space? You did. When you were 5, when you were 7, when you were 8. And then you had people go, what? That is not realistic. I'm like, who are you? Okay, you're my parents, but I mean, you went blind at some point, and I can still see. So I'm going to look past you with all the love in my heart, obey you, and then go do it. And this is the being corner of the table that I talk about. We're put through this machine that teaches us how to be socially acceptable, and unfortunately, one of the things it dims is our own voice, and we have to bring that back. Or you were born into a family where it's like, well, who are you? Aren't you big for your britches? These are all the being things. Or, ooh, I hate people with money. Your unconscious goes, well, I don't want to be one of them. I don't want to be a person that I hate.
That's kind of how my family is.
Okay.
My family was, when they had me, like, very piss poor.
Yeah.
And then, they worked up. And the thing is, like, my dad's like, stay there, you'll get more benefits. Because he's been at his job for almost, I think, 25 years.
He lives in a different world, though.
Yeah.
He came in at a different time. You came in this time. You are to hold the torch you're given with full respect for his that got you here and got you there. Your job as a child of anyone is to take the world past where they handed you the torch to the next place. Don't let them, and he's doing that out of love. He loves you. I have a child, I get it. And, love and respect and take your risks. Take them intelligently. Listen to what he has to say. There's wisdom in it. And then pull out where there's fear. Pull the fear parts out and take the wisdom and go forward. The wisdom is saying, take care of your mortgage. Make sure you're okay. Okay, great. You have even more creative ways of doing that. So when you declare an intention, I meditate most mornings. And something I do spend time doing is I pick like 3 or 4 parts of my life. My relationship with myself actually is first, because without that, you can't honestly hear anything else. And I sit and I kind of think of that, and I think of what I want it to be like. I want to really be able to, I want to hear myself, and I want to honor that. Sorry, this stuff moves me. Yeah, and I don't just think about it intellectually. I imagine what it feels like if I did. And in those moments when I do, I just click to that, oh, that's what that feels like. And that's all you need. Then move on to the next topic, my relationship with my husband, with your partner, with whoever you're with. What does that feel like when it's working right? Ideally, who am I in that moment? Yeah, I'm not gonna hit it all the time, but in the best moments, who am I? What's the best of me? What does that feel like? Great. Then I go to my kid. What does the best of me feel like there? Okay, that's what you gotta get the feel, not just the intellectual, but see, I don't care how many weeks it takes you, but just get to that minute where it clicks, because that goes deep into your unconscious and into the universe. And then with your money or your career or whatever you want, you just daydream on it like you're a 5-year-old in a treehouse, like, and then I have this, and then we get to wear sparkly uniforms and, whatever you want. Daydream it and lock in what it feels like. Then say thank you for all that I have and all that I am, and then somewhere it's already done for the highest and best good of everybody, and go into your day, right? So imagine what you want. Imagine that you work for a company that really, really cares, like not just about their bottom line and not just words are happy talk, and we all know that.
Yeah.
It's the actions. It's what you feel in your gut. Fun fact, we have a second brain in our gut. It's called the enteric nervous system. Well, you're a nurse. Enteric nervous system. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, that it has more neurotransmitters than like your entire spinal column. So,
yeah, it can.
Yeah, it can. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And your gut bacteria do stuff too.
Your gut bacteria is amazeballs.
No, I'm not gonna.
Okay, look up this word, microbiome. It's everything. So anyway, so imagine, do you have permission in your own head? This is some places you could get caught. It could feel like you're disrespecting your dad unconsciously if you break out of this mold where you're not happy. It could feel like you're flying in the face of what your parents have given you to break the rules and go after another job or go out on your own and freelance as a high needs care nurse for newborns, like freelance style, like the home care people. Mm-hmm. There's so many possibilities. I'm gonna let you talk now. What else do you wanna? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It just like, I don't know what if it's like the pressure, because I mean, thing is, I love being at the crib side.
Yeah.
So it's really hard to and I've never had the best self-esteem ever. You know, my parents have been always super supportive about that. I have a great relationship with them. I'm really lucky about that. And I always think, like you say, like, think about yourself. I just always think, like, thank you for what I have and everything like that. But it's sometimes, because the thing is, like, I think about going to other places, and then you hear like all these stories like, oh, well, those nurses there, they're like total bitches. Or like, oh, that place there, like their manager is this, or, you know, and I mean, at the end of the day, I just want to care for the kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I love caring for like the little 500 grammers. They're like, they're the bomb.
Yeah.
Or like the big old babies that are like still intubated, like those are my jam.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's so hard because like, it's a really good option. I never really thought about like the home care thing, but then at the same time, it's like I love being at like the isolate and the crib side. Like, I don't know. It's like, and then
So there's a lot. It's hard for you to figure out what you do want.
yeah, and it's like, is the grass really greener? I think that's like the big thing. Is the grass actually greener
not
if
about
I
the
went
grass.
somewhere else?
It's
Like,
not about the grass. Because what's the common denominator in those two places? You. What do you care about? You can't control those other people. You can't control how they're going to behave. And you said one of the keys earlier, your self-esteem doesn't feel solid to you. I mean, I think that's common with most of us, right? Show of hands, if everybody's brave enough, you know? Like, that's something a lot of us deal with, right? You've got to get your relationship with yourself solid. If you go into this adventure of renegotiating your career in a way that works for you, to do it right, never going to win, okay? That doesn't exist. Because there's always comparison, right?
I have
and
that
rumor.
issue that you said about the
Yeah,
other people.
of course. You're a child of this culture. We were given that to keep us wanting, so they can keep taking our money. And it's also a part of the basic human need to belong and check out and make sure we're safe and okay. But if you go into this adventure and your metric of success is not whether you did it right, but whether you really connected to yourself and you were true to yourself, not perfectly so, because none of us succeed at that every day, you just get 1% better every day at listening to yourself, honoring what you want and respecting what you want to create in your life. Could you do 1 or 2% a day?
I think so.
Could you do 1 or 2% a day? Yes or no?
Oh, yes.
Now,
I see what you did there.
That lived energetically, that lived from like right here. I need it to live from your whole body. And you can say no. Can you do 1 or 2% a day for yourself?
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, there it is. Did you
Yes.
feel that? Did you feel the difference? Did you feel the difference? That is the only success that matters, and frankly, that's all your parents want too. They want you to be happy. They're still, because they care and they're afraid and they're old school, foisting their opinion on you because they think, or maybe they're not. Maybe that just means where you experience it because you're still kind of kid-like in your heart towards them, and I hope that's always there for you. But can you take it in hand? Can you finally take your life in your arms and go, better or worse, it's you and me, you know,
Yeah.
let's do this. And yes, let's say you jump ship and they're all just awful people and you're like, God, these people are so much drama and backstabbing. I did it once, I can do it again. I can pick up my show and move because it's me, myself, and I know what I want, and I know what matters to me. So when you go out there in the marketplace, I want you to stand for yourself. Do you know what that means intellectually? It means that you know your value. You don't have to know it in your body because that's a lifetime. But you can know it intellectually, and you have a quantity that is incredibly valuable to an employer, which is you care deeply about your job. That is gold, okay? So take that out into the marketplace, and I want you to just start to imagine. You don't have to make any decisions. I just want you to give yourself permission to imagine the best work situation ever. When you set an intention, 2 things happen in my experience. One, and I don't know the metaphysical explanation for this, it may live in quantum physics, it may live somewhere in faith, I don't know. Molecules move. When you decide that you want something, the universe will answer you when you suddenly see green Toyotas everywhere. You're like, I never even knew that, you know? And suddenly you have an opportunity to like be around them. You're like, oh my God, this just happened. It happened because you set an intention, because you were clear with you. And that intention was aligned with your heart and your soul and your spirit and your best good. what's really good for you. Maybe you try stuff on, you're like, it didn't work. Maybe it wasn't the right one. Okay, next. It's not that big a deal. It is and it isn't. So that's the first thing, is like the quantum field and what we can do with our intention. The second is this portion of your brain, I think it's called the reticular formation. I'm not entirely certain. I'm not a neurologist. Shocking. It is a pattern recognition system, so that when you declare, I want something, it goes to work to go, okay, you know, and it starts to find it. You're like, oh my God, those people, they mentioned that opportunity. There's a hospital over there. I forgot all about that hospital. I'm gonna call them, you know? Or there's a resume service. I never even knew that resume service was there. Wow, you do resumes? Can you do mine? You know, like things start to fall into place, and just allow it. Just say yes and trust yourself, and know that everything really does, in spite of the world right now, we are where we're meant to be right now. We were meant to be brought off of our apathetic butts and get into action. That is why we have the people in power we have now. It is why we have the world now, because we're all forced to step up. Because we were turning into Wall-E. We were being infantilized, both civically, economically, everything else. And the universe is like, I don't think so. Here, try that. so I hope that's helpful.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your advice.
welcome.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Thank you for your time. Yes, yes, definitely. Thank you. Oh, gravity, God, sorry, these stools are a nightmare. Yes, hand in the back. Hand in the back. And I can't see this side, so shout out if you want to come up. Come on up. You can't, no, you don't get to hide. Get up here. How's everybody doing? You good? Did you just shake it out a little? Yeah. Hi. Welcome. Introduce yourself.
My name is Cicero.
Hi, Cicero. Welcome.
Pleasure to meet you.
You
Yeah.
two have a seat if you're comfortable.
Oh, yeah, sure.
That chair dumps people, so be careful.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm a big dude. So I am definitely closer in age to you than some of the other people.
Nothing against you.
Yeah, nothing against you guys. But so a couple of the things that you were talking about really kind of resonated with me. The first is that there is one aspect of the things that you were talking about that I think is being missed. When you talked about voting, when you talked about financial freedom, I think those are truths that are universal.
Yeah.
But there's another portion of that. When you have a great tan, such as mine,
Yeah.
there are people that are criminally disenfranchised
Yes.
in their ability to take control of their economic future.
Yep.
Taking control of their political future.
Yeah.
That we you know constantly have lost historically throughout this country and the history of the world.
Yep.
So that's one portion. The other portion for me is I am a father, I am a stepdad, I am a grandfather. And throughout my entire life, and I am doing well. I make six figures, but I am not passionate about what it is that I'm doing. Actually, you know, you and Dave Fenoy and Kevin Michael Richardson, you guys inspire me, and I'm passionate about the things that you guys do.
Yeah.
But the problem for me is I have a family, so I have a responsibility and I have an obligation to them. To make sure that, and my kids, my own kids, my stepkids, they're all adults now, but we're still financially responsible. Myself and my partner are financially responsible for them. And even though I am, you know, on paper doing very well, no one explained to me the importance of credit when I was younger. So now I am dealing with those issues right now. And my partner and I have worked together and we've done really, really well together, but we're still trying to navigate that. But I want to migrate towards my passions.
Okay.
You know, from a professional standpoint.
Yeah. So you need to create some form of passive income.
Right.
That will, in this discussion, we'll frame two different kinds of income. There's passive income, which is like money you'd get from your investments, or, you know, and then, which is honestly, like, I love real estate, so none of that's passive for me, but it's passive. And then there's earned income, which is the money you put in your time for. Passive income is preferable, obviously, because, hey, that'd be nice. But it's also preferable because you're taxed currently at a lower tax rate. Now, the pitchforks may change that.
Right.
But currently, there's a great advantage to passive income in terms, it's not just what you make, it's what you keep, you know? So your artistic side is calling you.
Yes.
And you got a heavy load.
Yes.
You know, I don't also want to
No
blow.
fat jokes.
It was not intended as such. Oh, it was a skinny jab. That was a skinny jab. So I don't want to blow past the first part of what you said either.
Right.
Because, I mean, it was very articulately spoken.
Thank you.
But it's a wound.
Right.
It's a
Right.
deep, awful
Right.
cultural wound.
Absolutely.
And one that I'm not as educated about as I wish I was.
Sure.
Because I'm white.
Right.
I didn't bump into that roadblock.
Well, if I could have a second to say
Yeah.
something, believe black people.
Yeah.
Believe black people. When we say the boogeyman is real, believe us. Because if you don't, the boogeyman will come for you next. And I think over the last few years, we've seen the boogeyman come.
Yes.
So believe us.
I think it was Michael Beckwith said, you know, anybody who is black or Latino,
Or marginalized. Believe marginalized people.
believe marginalized people.
Yes.
I think Michael Beckwith said something to the effect of anybody who's black or Mexican knows that racism never went anywhere.
Right.
It's just now you can see it.
Right.
And you can't take down what you can't see.
Right.
You know, and we've had the curtain pulled. I've had the curtain pulled back on my own invisible privilege I didn't even recognize. Because I mean, I was a kid who was bullied intensely as a child. I had all awful nicknames, beat up, threatened to be beat up every day, the whole 9 yards. But it gave me such great character. Like I'm made of iron inside. I'll cry at the drop of a hat, but don't mess with me. So I thought I had an experience of being disenfranchised, and I did in my own flavor, but I've come to recognize there are millions of flavors of disenfranchisement, some far more bitter than others. You know, and the thing of what we do, Florida, I believe this year passed legislation that allows convicted felons,
To vote again.
not all, but most of them who didn't do really, really, really heinous crimes, to be able to vote again once they're out. And we know that, yes, you should also know and tell your friends from Florida to get on the stick because there's other legislation they're now trying to do to suppress that.
Right.
That freed about a little over a million voters, 1.4 maybe,
Right.
in Florida to be able to vote likely Democratic in the next election. And Florida's a swing state. But you know what, on a human level, we said to these people again, you know what, you were 18.
Right.
The brain, okay, fun fact, the teenagers have enough hormones in their brain where if you tested them, I believe they would register as clinically insane.
Right.
Truth. Sorry if there's any teenagers in here, but maybe this will be helpful for you. The judgment center in the brain, last thing to form. I know for people I'm part native, but I'm more white than I am native. For my DNA, it finishes forming around age 24, 26. So something you did before your brain was even done forming, we're going to give you another chance. We're going to let you go out there and do it right again.
Right.
And there are forces in this country that, in order to hold on to power and money,
Right.
are trying to stop that from happening. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to sip
Yeah.
some water. You
Yeah. So just to piggyback off of that, you know, obviously most of the people that were allowed to vote again in Florida were people who didn't have violent crimes. Most of those were drug offenses, and the vast predominance of those people are black and brown. And those black and brown people are more likely to vote for the blue candidate than the red candidate. And those people, as we saw in Georgia in this past election in 2018, people will stop at nothing.
Nothing.
To
Carolina?
prevent North Carolina, exactly, to prevent themselves from losing the power that they so preciously covet. It's their precious.
It's
you know?
interesting, you know, hearing you say that, it occurs to me, I got some food on my jacket, but it occurs to me that...
It's for later.
Power really is the subject of a lot of this conversation.
Absolutely.
How it's used, how it's abused, how it's been taken from us, how we've given it away, you know, how we take it from ourselves. And so when you think about a lot of this stuff, it's heavy. Like, you're like, God, what can I do? you can just keep it simple. Just know it. Change your own mind with it, or don't have to change it, but just open up your own mind within yourself to someone else's experience. You don't have to fix it. You can't. It's not your business. But to understand and respect it is yours to own. And when you talk to people in other cities and other states, you know, these conversations can open up a little bit. You can think a little deeper for a second. It's what we all need, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So, Jen, I want to pursue my passions.
Okay.
But
I have questions for you. I have difficult questions for you.
Oh, okay.
Why is it that the adult children and stepchildren you have cannot be financially solvent on their own?
They can be to some extent. Some of them are, well, my partner's children are still in college.
Okay.
So
Fair enough.
she and I are both paying for them to
Fair enough.
finish school. And then I have my own biological son who is finding his way.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that as a responsible adult, that I am there to offer both emotional, intellectual, and if need be, financial support for him as he is making his way through life.
Because something to think about.
Yes.
Do you like real estate?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Because you can you can do two things. You can adjust your standard of living to a place that gives you more breathing room.
Sure.
You can take the home you live in now, get a smaller home, and get another home that you can rent out and start to build a real estate empire.
Right.
We have like apparently 3 minutes
Yes.
left, so I don't want to rush you, but this is important.
Yes.
Start to look at your standard of living and where you got excess and you don't need it. You know, watch little Marie Kondo's series on Netflix. I don't need that. Watch The Minimalists.
Right.
You know, check that out and see where it resonates for you.
Sure.
Start to take the load off. You're used to that load. It's also part of your identity to
Right.
be the man who makes everything possible for everyone else. Your spirit is calling you now to make it possible for yourself.
Right.
You will run into health issues soon if you don't listen to your spirit, because that's how it works.
Right.
It goes, I want this, and you ignore it. And it goes, I want this, and you ignore it. And it goes, here's some ulcers.
Right.
It goes, do you hear me now? You know? So that's, you know, I've been there. And I was there, last week? 5 minutes ago. So start to look at your identity and where it's threatened by letting other people hold their own weight. I predict that as you begin to let go of the financial weight for other people, they will step up. But they won't until you let go.
Sure.
And you will have to trust that you are enough and doing enough and loving enough and giving enough without cash attached. That your extraordinary spirit and your extraordinary character and intelligence and love are all they really need. 1 minute, I got it. In the meantime, while you consider how you can make that shift economically, start to look at little projects you can audition for on the side, on the internet, just to do for fun in your spare time.
Sure.
You know, start to feed that love and it will light a fire under your backside and you'll be like, I'm doing this.
Right.
You know, or, you know what, I just love it part-time. I'm okay. You know, yeah. So thank you. Thank you for
very
your
much.
perspective and your time. Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you so much. I'll take that. Best to you. All right, you guys, I thank you all for your time and your trust and your hearts, and super grateful for this time we had together. My podcast is online. I think it's on iTunes. Right now it's called The Art of Money with Jennifer Hale. It's also called Adulting with Money. I don't know, it needs a new name. Somebody submit suggestions. I'm on Twitter. I am at jhaletweets. This one will be up in a few weeks, and thank you. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of the con.